And so we rejoin Choshiro, where we left off last time with Ruka, in that mysterious moonlit cavern underneath the hospital. Now, on initial scan of the room, it doesn't seem like there's too much down here. But upon further investigation, we do find something on the ground here. Along with a ghostly vision of what I think is Yuhaibara and possibly young Ruka. Though before we follow them, we might as well go ahead and give a listen to that tape that we just found. So it seems that with a tip-off from a hospital employee, Choshiro was able to find his way down to the basement here, where he uncovered all the girls. I think we did see a vision of that when we played as him previously. But there was also something we haven't heard about before, which was a ceremony of passage. And that, I think, is something we are going to learn about soon enough in this chapter, though, well, along with the stone mirror, there is one other thing of interest that we should look into, which is that door that Yuhaibara disappeared into. Strange thing is that Choshiro doesn't seem to recall this door even being here. Now behind that very old door we find what could very well be a very old passageway. Some of it probably naturally formed from the running water, but clearly some of it has a man's touch to it. Going from the sub-basement, we do plunge further deep underground. It seems that further progress might be blocked. Still, we do find some precious materials here in the wall. And it does look like there's a little bit of an opening here in the collapse. But at least for the manly shoulders of Choshiro, it's a little bit too narrow. Still, we do find something among all the debris down here. It seems like somebody left their last will and testament. Yeah, whoever went down here was possibly hoping to escape a horrible fate, something to do with a day without suffering. But something happened at that ceremony of passage that, I guess, drove him mad and made a woman bloom into a horrible mess. It's really hard to tell exactly what he saw. It seems to be mostly the ravings of a lunatic. Thing is, I think we might be able to ask him if we inquire very nicely. Just have to wait for him to make his move. Though obviously being in this very narrow corridor isn't probably the best course of action. In fact, he doesn't seem to be making an appearance. Or he was just waiting to lure us into a trap. Yeah, this is a brand new enemy we haven't run into just yet. From the look of him, he seems like he could very well be a villager from the island, especially considering his weapon of choice appears to be a harpoon, which, considering this is an island, meant a very good chance that some of the populace were indeed fishermen. Thankfully, as with most ghosts that Chushiro faces, that guy was particularly slow, so he's only dangerous if you allow him to get close enough to you. For now, though, we did hear that elevator bell earlier, which means that hopefully the elevator is down here, and we can maybe make our way back up to the hospital to gather some more clues. Before we can get out of here, we have to deal with a familiar trio of ghosts. Just a similar attack process that you need to approach them with. Just rapid-fire shots as quick as you possibly can, and hopefully making sure to get all three of them at once. It seems their female companion does have a slight bit more health pool, I suppose. And the only thing you really have to worry about with them is, well, if they do happen to flank you, or worse yet, if they all three happen to encircle you. Also, we do have another opportunity here to try to grab that Hazuki doll in the elevator chamber wall. It is still amazingly hard to get. And what's worse is that the elevator has indeed shut down for us, so we can't even get back up to the first floor. Thing is, though, that it does seem that, I guess, we are wanted on this basement level. Though before I get to that door where the vanishing ghost was, there's obviously an item waiting somewhere here in the corner. But I guess I should bring up the fact that one of the main reasons that this game never saw a US release is that it is a particularly buggy game. It has a number of crashes that it shipped with, and they are actually pretty easy to get crashes. And there is also just quite a few, minor glitches here and there, such as, well, item detection, or just if there even actually is an item. From a couple of guides I've read, there is supposed to be an item here somewhere around the gurney, and I think it might require you to focus your flashlight for an additional amount of time, but I just cannot get it to seem to trigger. There's definitely something there, but, well, it could also very well be a bug. Still, unable to get the upgradable items that I'm sure are there. Let's go ahead and see where that vanishing nurse was trying to lead us. Seems like it could be just another room in the hospital, but something to keep in mind with most hospitals is that what they normally keep in the basement is a very specialized room. That is the morgue. So we find our first death certificate here. It was a patient that managed to drown in the pool. And it seems that they were stricken with some kind of psychosis after the dance, the kagura. And they did shows some traces of budding, which I guess meant that they had to get their face cut off. Quite a terrifying scene, or a turn of events, I suppose, for this person. Though I guess it all goes back to just the many archaic rituals that happened on Rugutsu Island. So it appears that there was something down here that was attracting Yu's attention. And I'm sure it has to do with any of the many items that populate this room. Now, some of them are actually pretty nice expendable items, such as that sacred water. Or on this gurney here, we do find some red crystals. But there are actually very important story-based items hidden in this room as well. First of which, in this twitching garbage can, is a document that goes over the disposal of designated records. Guess whenever they didn't want information to get out, they would burn it. And we now have the key to get to that incinerator, where we very well might be able to get quite a bit of information. And it's actually in a place that we have visited previously back on the first floor. Now, before we get to that, we might as well collect the 2 last additional items in here. First of which is another cassette from Choshiro's investigation, hopefully filling in the gaps between the 1st and 4th tape. So during that ritualistic dance, the Kagura, not only did all those little girls collapse, but they all suffered severe heart attacks. And in fact, one of the primary people in that ritual, the center person, I would assume, is actually right here in the morgue. This Sabuki Tono. Yeah, they were performing as the Utsuwa, which I'm not sure of the actual usage in the ritual, but it's the center person. And yeah, she suffered a massive heart attack for guess, unknown reasons. Though, from the autopsy here, they seem to think it has something to do with the dreaded ceremony of passage and the usage of masks, which has apparently been taboo on the island since something happened. Speaking of all these masks, I guess it kind of explains why there's so many in the morgue here. The thing that is a bit unexplained, though, is who might have put this Hazuki doll down here. Still, we are gathering as much knowledge as we can about the ceremony that went on here, along with the attached ritualistic dance. Problem is, before we can use that newfound key to get back up and explore the first floor further, deal with that one ghost that we made pretty short work of on the sub-basement level. And he would honestly have more of an opportunity to hit me in this much more confined room, but yeah, as long as you keep in mind that Choshiro has very just rapid-fire action rather than trying to, build up a storehouse of energy with the camera obscura, yeah, you can usually make pretty short work of any of your enemies. And that vanishing nurse is still being pretty helpful to us. She managed to help us find that key pretty easily. And I get the feeling now she is possibly leading us back to the first floor. So we'll ignore that door over there. Just keep on following the nurse. And it does seem like she has led us back to a very familiar spot. There's just one little slight hiccup. Yeah, there is no power running to the gate. So let's see where our clue leads us. Looks like something of an electrical box, but it does leave into question just where that might be. All we can really tell is that it's a dark room, and considering our general environment, that could very well be anywhere. Still, there was that one other door that we hadn't looked into yet, so we could probably try there first. Though, you might want to keep an eye out, because there is one very easy to miss item in this hallway here. Yeah, down on the box, we can find yet another sacred water, which I think they give Choshiro just a large amount of healing items, considering that he seems to get the brunt of all the combat in the game. Though it does kind of balance out, considering that he is probably the more powerful character. Yeah, taking a look at our map, it seems the next area nearby is an isolation ward and a passage under construction. Doesn't really seem like a place to put an electrical box, but yeah, we don't really have many other options right now. Yeah, this place is definitely not safe, and yet again, a place that I think might be a bit bugged out. We can already see that there's something causing our, ghost compass to react, but nothing is attacking us. We can also see that something is causing our filament to glow blue. It doesn't really seem to be much, just a floating body inside of a confinement cell. But looking at it doesn't cause our filament to, stop glowing, and we can't seem to find an item. And initially there doesn't seem to be an enemy, though that hanging ghost does make its appearance toot sweet. But yeah, the hanging ghost here can be a little bit troublesome. There are a lot of obstructions on the ceiling, and that primarily is where she resides. But thankfully, she is very slow, and she usually announces herself pretty prominently. She doesn't just pop out. But considering her bound frame and the fact that she was hanging from the ceiling, I almost want to assume that she might be who's inside that confinement cell there. Still, it does make things a little bit confusing. What with the enemy compass kind of freaking out. But you do want to make sure and explore the unfinished passageway here. Because it does give you a little bit of information in regards to the fact that there are some, older tunnels that were found underneath the hospital here. And I guess going into them was yet another cultural taboo that Haibara didn't really seem to care about. Along with that information, we do get another healing item, as well as one of the easiest to find Hazuki dolls in the game. I assume the miners were using it as a means to tell if there was poisonous gas down here, because if this doll started to laugh, well, that means you're probably going to die. We get another little ambush here, though for the most part it is a bit easy. I think this is the same ghost that we might have fought with the trio, though she does seem to be a little bit stronger than what we faced previously. Also, if you are going to try to run, you need to make sure and get out of your attack pose, otherwise, yeah, you will get pretty promptly swatted in the face. Additionally, I'm not sure if these guys were supposed to attack as a duo, but I guess maybe if you don't rush all the way down the hallway, they won't attack you all at once, though I am fairly certain that if you do not take out the hanging ghost before you rush down into the unfinished passageway here, you very well could be dealing with a trio of very nasty customers. And in fact, at this point, with the bugged out enemy compass, I don't really want to spend too much time down here, any more than we have to. So down that passageway, I'm just going to say, is a broken door, so don't even worry about going down there. Instead, we are just going to go ahead and flip the switch on the electrical box here. And when he says that power has been restored, he means that just that one electrical thing is now running again. I'm sure no one down here could have the benefit of proper running lights, especially whoever this upside down person was. Still not not sure if there's supposed to be something more to this that I might be missing out on. As far as I can tell, there's just 2 peepholes, and that's pretty much it. From what I've been able to tell, there's no additional, enemy lurking, in the morgue, or I don't know. I don't think you have to look in the peepholes in a particular way to get something to trigger. I think it literally is just something broken. For now, though, we don't have to worry about that, because we can now safely head back up to the first floor. Which means we can also head to that door that we should now be able to unlock. Though, obviously, Choshiro's obsession comes first, and that means that anytime we see Yu Haibara, we should chase after him before we get to any relevant story items. Though in this case, we actually get some very, very nice pieces of information in Director Haibara's office here. First of which is a letter from Ruka's father to the director. Seems the mask he was working so vigorously on was the Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, which I think is also the subtitle of the game. And that is a very important item for the Ceremony of Passage. It seems that the previous mask maker made a very subpar mask, which I guess made the ceremony fail, and that led to the Day Without Suffering. Hopefully, though, Ruka's father made a much better mask, and, he kind of hoped that the Ceremony of Passage would go off without a hitch. Though, yeah, that apparently did not go as planned. The other item we find here that Yu was looking at were some notes from the director. In it, we initially get the idea that the director was just trying to drum up some money from tourism for the island. That's why he was trying to bring back the Ceremony of Passage and the Kagura. In reality, though, there was a much deeper, I guess, inclination that he had for trying to bring back the ceremony. And that was because, the director's daughter was suffering from lunar sedata. And he was hoping that this ceremony of passage would, be able to cure it. Much like I'm sure he would have hoped it would have been able to cure his wife, but she ended up taking her own life and possibly spreading the disease to their daughter. So it seems, at least on a surface level, that maybe Director Haibara wasn't so bad. He was, in the end, trying to do something nice for his daughter, and maybe for the world at large by curing this horrible dementia-based disease. But it is also good to keep in mind that sometimes the means don't always justify the end. And obviously there were all the kidnappings and the murders and the cover-ups, and you might recall the hidden chamber that we visited previously that was a regular house of horrors. It's pretty easy to be reminded that both Haibaras in this case were pretty guilty, and probably not people to be taken sympathetically. Yeah, along with that vanishing ghost, there is something down here for us. Though it is guarded by a very troublesome spirit. We fought this ghost quite a few times already as both Ruka and Masaki. And for the most part, he wouldn't be that much of a, I guess, big deal for Haruka or Misaki. But I think this is probably the first really fast-moving ghost that Choshiro has had to deal with. Kind of brings up the major issue with his inability to, I guess, stun enemies at all with his attacks. But now that we have some time, we can pick up this item here. And on this observation report, we get some notes from Dr. Haibara, or Director Haibara, about the fact that it's pretty much a really bad idea to interrupt the ceremony of passage. It could cause heart attacks and just permanent brain damage. But he also mentions a brand new place, which is the Morning Palace, where Sakuya is being kept. Now, we have definitely heard that name before, and that's going to be a very important person to keep in mind. Also, it's important to keep in mind the fact that I think we might have interrupted a ceremony ourselves, but I guess more importantly for right now, after that previous encounter, it really did strike me that we probably need to upgrade Choshiro at least one more time, and power is a good, cheap, reasonable way to go. Hopefully that should make our future fights a little bit easier going. Still, with that slight detour out of the way, yep, we should be safely able to head to that first floor door and maybe check out that incinerator. Though, on the gurney here, we do have just a little bit of backstory fluff, I suppose. Doesn't really give us too much new information. Just tells us about the 3 girls we already know about, and 2 additional names that were going to be used for the, I guess, handmaiden selection. I think the one really interesting thing to keep in mind here is that, while I think Director Haibara was initially full into the idea of maybe this supernatural cure, and I guess some of his underlings really didn't take it to heart that they really needed to, follow the old ways and not just pick any random young girl. They needed to be very special girls to be kanetas, which are, I think, the handmaidens. I think it was the poor selections that sometimes led to, I guess, the failure of the kagura in the ceremony. Thing is, if you're wondering exactly, I guess, what might make a good kaneda, well, I think purity is one of them, but I think there was another thing that kind of connected Misaki, Ruka, and Madoka that went, beyond purity. Yeah, something that they all 3 seem to have, at least to some degree, was something of a psychic presence. But yeah, the assistant's note here just goes a little bit more into the dance and the ceremony. Also, the wondering that, are we really picking the right handmaidens to use in the ceremony? Though he seems to be just overtaken by the strange song that's played at the kagura. Seems to drown out any real logic or reason, instead just pushes people to indulge in this very dangerous ritual. Another thing that was kind of brought up by that assistant's note is that there is a specialized, I guess, moon-based location that the ceremony of passage was being held. It doesn't seem to be that cavern where we found the girls just staring up at the moon. Instead, that seemed to be used for something completely different. Also, as we got from that recording just now, it seems that they were very strict about the whole maiden part of the handmaiden thing. No boys were ever really necessary, which I think kind of explains why, for the most part, we've only really seen, I guess, one little boy ghost in all of this. Because I assume, more than anything, they were probably trying to keep up at least, I guess, some impression that they were maybe a real hospital. So they, I guess, realistically couldn't turn away everybody. But yeah, as we make our way out into the lobby, that beckoning nurse continues to direct us and tell us that we are indeed heading on the right path. Also, I realized how low I think my health had gotten from that basement fight that we got into. But hey, I mean, they've been throwing all these healing items at us. We might as well go ahead and indulge if we do need to. Now, I think one of the complaints I've probably previously heard leveled at this game in particular is that there's probably an excessive amount of backtracking. And, we've kind of seen that from already having to retread multiple floors with multiple characters. But I think this is especially one of those cases, considering that, we have to retread almost 8 rooms with the same character with really nothing much going on. There's not even that much in the way of any vanishing ghost or, new pieces of reading material. Though that isn't to say that there are no vanishing ghosts waiting for us. We still need that extra little bit of assistance to make sure we know exactly where we're headed. And the backdoor key actually leads us to a very open and, I would say, almost picturesque location. I guess with the emphasis on almost picturesque, what with all these, garbage bags. But we're not out here to take in the scenery. Instead, we are out here to hopefully see if we can't find something that isn't completely burned up. And, in case in point, we do. In fact, we find a whole bundle of letters that are addressed to us from, I think, a friend of Choshiro's. It seemed that this friend was visiting the island, along with his, I think, maybe niece or daughter, or little sister. And they, I guess, were hoping to take in the sights and mysteries of the old world flavor that was Rogutsu Island. Then goes a bit more into the mask that was used. Seems the mask was not the face of God, as opposed to most cultures, masks. Instead, they were just the faces of the dead that were used to communicate with other dead people, which was, I guess, the passage part of the ceremony of passage. Means more, the passing of a life into the afterlife. But he also starts to wax a little bit philosophical regarding the mask. He also goes over the mask worn by the Utsuwa, which is the mask of the lunar eclipse, and how the previous mask maker, Soutsu, had made a, like I mentioned, inferior mask, and that caused a massive blooming on the Utsuwa, and I guess led to that day without suffering, which, I don't know, doesn't really seem to have that negative connotation, but it apparently scared the islanders to no end. But yeah, it seems that this friend's, I guess, sister was stricken with Lunasadata by visiting the island here, and she had to be put into the Haibara hospital, which obviously not the best idea. And slowly but surely, the madness of Lunasadata and the ritual at hand, drove his friend insane, and yeah, there's probably a reason why he probably hasn't heard from this friend in quite some time. The one other thing in this incinerator area is something regarding taking care of film incineration as well. I guess the person who wrote this document really wanted to get rid of any film records of the Kagura because I guess it kind of played tricks on his mind. Something he clearly remembered from being there was slightly altered and distorted from rewatching the film later. Someone that he saw there wasn't actually there. It seemed to be a nurse. It seems he didn't even want to wait for Director Haibara's instructions. He just wanted to get rid of that film as quickly as he possibly could. Also, speaking of that nurse, seems we are being beckoned even further into the thicket here. And sadly, this isn't the most engrossing outdoor area we've ever seen in a Fatal Frame. I think that kind of goes to maybe Fatal Frame 2, or even the small outdoor areas in Fatal Frame 1. This particular outdoor area, while expansive, is, in actuality, pretty empty. Also, they really seem to incline to kind of pad out the area here by trying to keep you on your toes with a lot of vanishing ghosts. But it invariably just ends up being the, same beckoning nurse, but 5 times over. Still, I think we are getting closer to something. We've reached these archways, which I'm wanting to say are called tories. And these are normally passageways leading to, I guess, very holy areas. And along our path, we do find an upgrade lens for the spirit flashlight. The chain lens, not really that useful. It just allows the periods between when a chain will start and stop to be extended a bit. But that's only really necessary if you're trying to get points. Having finally reached the end of our path here, reach a very strange monument of tombstones. Along with what I assume is what was the nurse's end goal for trying to get our attention. Because yeah, there is something waiting for us on this very large broken tombstone. Though before we get to that, it is good to feel that dull sense tingling. Because we do have another easily found Hazuki doll. But now it's time to find out why we were led to this very remote location of the island. We find Tsubaki's diary here. And I'm wanting to say that this was the sister, or daughter, I guess, of the guy who was writing all those burnt letters. So they came to the island, she was greeted very wholeheartedly, and she was even given this great privilege of being the Utsuwa for this, island ritual. She thought it'd be, great fun and a good way to repay all their generosity, but yeah, she's dead in the morgue now. We also find a new piece of film here on the ground, along with a very familiar face and a very, ominous harbinger of things to come. And as such, I think that is a good reason as any to book it back into the hospital. Because at this point, we are attacked by 3 familiar ghosts, and while, on the surface level, they have never been that much of an issue to deal with, they can be a little bit of a hassle to deal with in this very open 360-degree environment. And, outside of the fact that we've already had to face them quite a few times already, the one other reason that you probably don't want to fight them is because they will just keep respawning. So as you defeat them, you run a little bit of ways down the path here, they'll just immediately re-pop back up and pretty much harass you all the way back up into the building. I suppose the one ray of light here is that you actually don't have to fight them as opposed to every other encounter, because there is nothing blocking your way from getting back inside. And much like that unbeatable black phantasm, they just immediately give up chase. So yeah, at this point we are learning quite a bit about this ceremony of passage, the Kagura dance, just how much involvement both Haibaras had into it, and I guess why they even were indulging to do this ritual at all or build this hospital here in the first place. And as we do have a brand new piece of film, I guess this would be as good a time as any for Choshiro to head into the other area of the facility. Though, obviously, you want to keep an eye out for any random vanishing ghosts that might pop up. Definitely one of the odder ones to find. Not sure why that particular patient was rising out of a sink. But yeah, as Masaki did open the way with that passageway up on the second floor there, we should be able to make our way pretty easily over there. Does seem like we're going to have to deal with a mysterious phone call yet again in the lobby here. It's definitely a very similar sentiment that Ruka's mother had. And sometimes maybe just letting the past go and not trying to look too far into it might honestly be the better solution. Though, for Choshiro, he seems pretty hell-bent on just trying to figuring out what happened with Yu Haibara. Also, this vanishing ghost in particular is a bit troublesome to get. If you try to make a, turn or left turn around this corner too quickly, that will actually cause that ghost to vanish a lot quicker than it normally would. And if you probably haven't, saved in a bit, you might have to do a, little bit of backtracking and replaying to grab that one vanishing ghost. As we make our way into the living quarters / general hall area of the facility, hopefully this will maybe jog some more memories for Choshiro, but in addition to that, it does mean a whole new slew of upgradable items for us to find. Though sadly, the red crystals still aren't of any real massive use. I mean, I guess we could upgrade the single shot increased damage lens, but I don't know. Doesn't really seem like it's necessary at this point. Also, as we enter the dining room here, there is immediately another upgradable item on the ground here. And I think that should allow us just enough blue crystals to max out the power for the flashlight. And I think you might have already noticed in the previous fight we had, that caused our damage to go from about 500 to 700, so this final upgrade, we should be doing probably almost double the amount of base damage that we probably previously were able to do. Yeah, let's go ahead and look at this film that somebody was trying to burn and that the nurse was trying to hide.
巫女が死んだ。何が起こってたんだ。
And we see a scene that we've kind of already viewed in flashbacks from Masaki and Ruka. But I think that's the first instance of Choshiro seeing it. And, well, that kind of fills in a lot of additional gaps that, he might have had regarding that, ceremony of passage. In addition to that, we do find a half-burnt oil painting in the fireplace here. Along with another tape of Choshiro's investigation. So that fills in, I think, the 2 missing tapes. So let's go ahead and hear what's on this tape.
9月25日、老滅館。ようやく老滅館の患者に聞き込みができた。関係者以外は入るのが難しいが、さやかさんの口添えもあってなんとか潜り込めた。月遊病というのは記憶をなくす病気らしく、言っていることはほとんど要領を得ない。見たと言った次の瞬間には見ていないという。これじゃ聞き込みにならない。入院している少年から3階の間垣という男の部屋で少女を見たという証言を得た。これからその部屋へ向かう。老滅館309号室、発見できず。どうもこの絵のことらしい。しかしここで俺どうでの老滅館4階、ここで最後だ。奥の部屋を調べればこの建物を全て調べたことになる。この部屋の住人は咲夜という女性、灰原の姉にあたる。重度の月遊病らしく、灰原について聞いてもおそらく無駄だろう。しかも今は昏睡状態ということだ。しかしここはまるで牢獄だ。捜索終了。灰原も少女たちもここにはいない。
So, quite a bit of information from that. First off, well, as if the oil painting wasn't enough of a hint, there was also a mention of Magaki and a room on the 3rd floor, which we actually visited in the last chapter as Ruka. We saw the paintings and that hunched-over painter on the floor. More importantly, though, we find out some very important information regarding Sayaka. Yeah, Sayaka. Sorry, it's kind of familiar with Ruka's mom. But yeah, that person was comatose up on the 4th floor, and was also apparently a Haibara as well. Yeah, she was the person that the director started all this, investigation for after, the mom died. I guess Sakuya went into a coma, got Luna Sadata, and, that's why they endeavored to do all this. Though I guess it might be safe to say that might be why director Haibara did what he did. Not really giving justification for what, the son did, Yu Haibara. Now that we know the next place to go, it's up to the 3rd floor for us. And it honestly is nice for some of these puzzle pieces to be falling into place and to figure out why someone would want to, continue these rituals and do half the stuff that they did here. Definitely reminds me a bit of the plot of Fatal Frame 2, where a ritual was done to, hopefully keep things in check and balance. That there was maybe some, I guess, good-natured intentions behind it, but yeah, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But yeah, as before, there are some reading materials to find here in the nurse's office. In this case, we learn that Magaki in room 309 has seemingly gotten pretty problematic and almost a bit violent. He just keeps lashing out and scribbling down eradication and destruction, and it seems all of his paintings are just this one particular woman over and over and over again. Also, we find that Choshiro's investigation tapes go beyond the number 4. So let's go ahead and have a listen to tape number 5.
Luca ちゃんを他の病院に入れたいということだが、急な話だし当てもない。この数日でさやかさんは随分やつれた気がする。少しでも目を離すとふっとどこかいなくなってしまいそうだ。俺は。
So yeah, this final tape here goes over the point in which I assume Choshiro had found Ruka down in the passageways, and Ruka's mom had figured out Haibara Hospital is definitely not the place to be taking care of her daughter. But the problem was that all that guilt and all those horrible feelings were just eating away at her. Though likewise, I'm pretty sure that things were much, much worse for Ruka. In fact, it was a bit hard to make out there, but I think that voice said Okasa, which is Japanese for mother. And even though we do want to head to that artist's room, I can't help but feel there might be something more in Ruka's room. She seemed to be the only girl of the trio that seemed, I guess, really especially close to her mother and father. And we do find a nice little storehouse of blue crystals. But more importantly than that, we do see Sayaka packing up Ruka's things to hopefully get her away from the torment and horrible memories of the island. We do see a picture of, I think, the Haibara family, along with another diary entry from Ruka's mom. Just goes a bit more into, I guess, her father's madness and constant inclination to make masks and, I guess, inevitably perfect the mask of the lunar eclipse. just seems really sad to have to leave him behind, but I guess she kind of felt that he was at the point of no return. But yeah, before we can get over to the artist room, it seems that the doctor here is making his rounds, though now that we are sufficiently powered up, he is more or less a bit of a joke. And he drops a very strange small key. And that small key is an indication to me that we have to do a little bit of backtracking to do a few optional things for this chapter. Which is especially disheartening because I definitely want to get back into the artist's room, but before we can get to that, I think we first need to head back down to the second floor. Because, as we exit the elevator, we are greeted by a vision of you at the doorway to his hidden little room adjacent to Ayaka's room. But as I pointed out previously, there is no handle for this side of the door, so yeah, this particular little optional side thing is a bit cumbersome because it requires you to circle all the way around back to that hidden room. But yeah, as there was nothing especially exciting that happens between here and there, just gonna jump right into the secret room where we can see Yu Haibara's trademark black jacket. And inside we find another entry into his notebook. Now, the one thing that this really brings up is that, I guess, the ritual and the old ways of life here on the island are, strangely just locked in time, as if they will just never change. And he also brings up the possibility that, yes, the Kagura might help things, but also the ceremony of passage is really, really what's going to get things, working to hopefully fix his sister. Also, this is something a bit up for debate, but he talks here a bit about Ayako, who he is, right adjacent to. And some people seem to think that Ayako is, I guess, Yu Haibara's daughter, but it's never really clearly said. It just seems to be that they both have a bit of a sadistic side. But yeah, I guess Director Haibara wanted to do a certain level of the ceremony of passage, but it was Yu Haibara that really wanted to go that extra mile and go deeper into the roots of the ritual, and that actually might have been where things had gone wrong, or maybe it was always inevitably cursed to fail. But the reason you wanted to come down here after you get the small key was so you can open this box here, where we do get another notebook entry for you, as well as a very mysterious piece of film. Also, as opposed to most of the reading material in the game, it doesn't immediately allow you to read this new entry into the black notebook, so you do have to scroll through just the sheer huge library of other reading material that we have gotten so far. And here he just goes into, mustache-twirling supervillainy, because he talks about, that Choshiro will never be my true enemy because he's not willing to go into the depths of evil like I am, and, it's a bit hackneyed, but, I'm sure there has to be something important on this film for it to have been hidden so well inside the secret room. He also goes over the fact that even though his sister had lost most of her memory, she still managed to remember this weird, strange tune that went along with the Kagura and the Ceremony of Passage. And he kind of wonders if there's maybe something deeper to all that song. But yeah, before we head back up to the 3rd floor, let's go ahead and pop back down to the dining room and see what's on this film. And as opposed to the other films that we've gotten, it doesn't trigger a cutscene. Well, at least not one that takes us out of control, but instead just, kind of plays a short little film of the dance and ritual we've already seen a couple other times. So, I don't know, bit of a subpar reward, but I don't know. For now, it's time for us to finally enter the artist room. Though, on initial viewing, it kind of seems like there's something missing that was here when we were in this room with Ruka. Magaki has turned a little bit feral, a little bit on the offensive side. And while it may seem initially like this could be a difficult area to fight in, as long as you stay in the center of the room here, you usually have a pretty wide berth to attack him. And yeah, he actually is pretty slow and easy to kill. His one attack seems to be just pounding on the ground, and I think it does have kind of a AoE effect to it, but yeah, with him easily dispatched, that strange painting of the woman is now back on the floor, and it really seems to draw Choshiro's attention.
再び島を訪れたあの日、この島から人が消えた。